Hello everyone, welcome to a new segment of Flutter Tips. My name is Elian, and today we're going to be looking into the ChildBuilder pattern and how you can use it to improve performance and reduce the rebuilds of your widgets. So let's get into it. We've all had small widgets like this one where we use properties like brightness and the theme with the theme.ofContext extension. In this case, we have a small application that uses the brightness and the theme, and based on it, we use the material widget to define a background to our small example application. We can see that the small background is this purple background behind the list style in the example application. And for the sake of the example, we use this div widget tree. We only have a list style, but you can imagine this can be a complete page. There are sometimes that you can use the brightness for different properties, or even the size of the widget, or other things that you can access inside the build method. And of course, this can be anything, a very complex widget tree. But for the sake of the example, we use a list style. So maybe you've used this, and in this example, you can see that in the application, we change the theme, and based on that, the brightness is changing. And that means that this widget gets rebuilt. But if we see the logs, and if we log inside this deep widget tree, we log whenever the widget is building, just see this number, it is constantly rebuilding. And this is something that if you just look at the code, you might say, oh, this looks fine, but it is actually rebuilding a lot of times. And we are changing the theme, but nothing inside the deep widget tree is changing. So of course, this shouldn't be happening, and so many rebuilds shouldn't be occurring. So we can rename this widget and we can call it a bad widget, because this is something that even though it looks fine, we shouldn't be doing it, as this is causing a lot of rebuilds of a lot of unnecessary rebuilds of our widget tree. So what can we do about it? This is an approach that we call ChildBuilder pattern. And just by using this widget defining here, we can see that there is a widget ChildBuilder, which is just a builder function. Here you can define a type def so that it becomes easier to call or to use. But at the end, this is just a function that uses the context and receives a child widget. You can recognize this pattern from some animation widgets or even the builder widget, where we can provide the context, but we also add a child that we will be providing. Then we receive the child that we don't want to rebuild, and we just return this builder function where we pass the new context of this new widget, which is this one, and the child that we don't want to rebuild constantly. Then we can see that in this updated version of the widget, we get the ChildBuilder, and the brightness and the theme are not on the global, let's say, build method. They are inside the builder of this ChildBuilder widget, which means that it is only going to trigger rebuilds of whatever is inside this builder scope and this context scope, which means that this child, which is later on used in this line, is not longer going to be on the scope of the brightness and the theme, which means that it doesn't necessarily need to be constantly rebuilding again. Also, if you use a correct linter, you will also count that the const keyword is used for the deep widget tree, so that the compiler can say, okay, this is only going to be built once, and we can reuse that instance later on. And when we do this, you can see on the example that we are again changing the brightness of the application, but no other building logs are constantly happening, which means that we successfully fixed that bug where the deep widget tree was constantly rebuilding, as we use this ChildBuilder approach to simplify everything. So some benefits of this pattern is you prevent unnecessary rebuilds, you have of course a better performance, and there is a better separation of concerns between the dynamic logic, in this case the brightness and some conditionals that we were making, and the static widget. We didn't want the big widget tree rebuilding constantly if there's no need to do so. So to mention it again, this is the code that you're going to need to replicate this behavior and fix wherever your widgets are being constantly rebuilt unnecessary. So I'm going to remove myself so that you can have a snap of the code. And I'm back to finish with this Flutter tip. So thanks for watching. This was a very quick tip, and I hope it is very helpful to you as a Flutter developer.